And Ducky, what, that never would have worked. Come on. We looked ridiculous together.
The original ending to Pretty in Pink was very different than the movie as it stands now. And you can actually find that there was a novelization of Pretty in Pink written at the time that had the original ending because it was written from the original script. And people would write to me saying, how come the book is so different than the movie? The original ending was Molly shows up at the prom, Ducky shows up at the prom, they come together and dance a moonlight dance together, thus, you know, showing that their solidarity as friends would always be the most important thing in their lives, and that, you know, they're going to stick together, and despite all the rifts that had happened, that, you know, they have their pride and they'll show up at the prom and do their own thing.
Originally in the script, she goes to the prom with Ducky and sees Andrew McCarthy there, but she's with Ducky and they're friends and they dance, and everybody stood around and watched them dance.
I finally found a good tune. Well, shall we?
When we shot it, a bunch of things sort of conspired for it not to quite work. Molly became very ill that day, and we had to, doing the moonlight dance entailed a lot of spinning that wasn't real good for her stomach.
Just the turning and turning and turning. We kept doing it over and over and over again. I just kept getting sicker and sicker and more dizzy, and yeah, it was definitely not very romantic.
So we'd be spinning, and she'd be looking at me like, you know, and I was like, oh no, this is not going to end well. This would be a bad ending for the movie. Pretty in projectile vomit.
After we were turning and turning and turning, and then I think I just collapsed.
And, you know, everybody, we had to stop shooting for the day.
But that's really all I remember about doing it. I remember feeling it didn't work, and I remember just being really sick. I was supposed to end up with Ducky. And when Robert Downey Jr. was being considered for it, I thought he was adorable. I thought you know, I thought he was cute. I was attracted to him. I'm making myself sound completely boy crazy, but I thought he was really, really cute. And it sort of made sense. I could end up with him at the end. I mean, once they cast John and we started working together, I thought there's no way that this ending's gonna work. With John, not to say that John isn't cute, not to say that he isn't adorable, because he clearly is. I just didn't have that chemistry with him myself. That's not the relationship that we had. So it didn't really make sense when we went to shoot the ending of us ending up together. It just seemed completely bizarre. It seemed like I was ending up with my brother. And I think I told Howie that, and Howie still wanted to shoot the ending, you know, as written. So I think they really did want me to end up with the sort of underdog, you know, goofy character.
Well, Molly never saw him as a love interest. She saw him as her best friend and somebody who would do anything for her, and she for him. But she didn't have those feelings for him. And you'd think that I would have seen that during the course of the movie. You know, that would have been the first clue directorially that this is not going to work as an ending. But it didn't. I didn't get it. None of us got it.
I knew it. I knew it wasn't going to, and then we filmed it. And I think they didn't really figure it out, the filmmakers, until they screened the film.
When we tested it, they loved the movie, and then at the very last moment when Molly wound up with Ducky, they booed. We realized then and there that the right thing to do was to wind up with the guy who truly loves you. But the girls in the audience didn't care about that. They wanted to get the cute guy. And so it was a big lesson for us, which is forget the politics. When a girl wants the cute guy, she's got to get the cute guy.
And we were devastated. I mean, we felt that we were selling out, that she shouldn't end up with a rich guy. And we met with the head of the studio, who was Ned Tannen and Dawn Steele. And we finally realized that, you know, we're making a movie for the audience. So we thought, okay, we'll shoot an alternative ending.
It was very, very tough. John rightfully took his time and figured out a way to give them what they wanted, but at the same time to keep the integrity of the story. But he had so many things going on, and I was sitting there in his house every night going, could we work on this? But he was like, well, how am I supposed to do this so that the whole thing's geared toward true love? And then one day, we were sitting in the editing room, you know, and he went, I got it. It was just like that, the light bulb went off. He says, what if Andrew comes to the prom alone? And he backtracked from there, and he had it in no time at all, and that was it. But, you know, it was my first movie. I had everything on the line. I had given up my business. I moved out here, and here it was. I had an ending that didn't work with a studio that was really anxious about that. And he had done everything a producer you could ask a producer to do. And here I was going, but I need a new ending. He did it. He came up with that ending.
And we brought everybody back and we reshot the ending.
6 months later, I was here in New York doing a play, and I had shaved my head at the time because I was playing a soldier in a play, and I'd lost weight, and I'd shaved my head, and I was playing this army person. They called me up and going, we have to do a reshoot. You're going to end up with the girl. I'm like, what are you talking about? I shaved my hair, and anyway, so they flew me out to Los Angeles. They put this ridiculous wig on me.
And poor Andrew is faced with the wig. They made a wig for him. They did the best they could, but God help him, it made him look like a mushroom.
I think if they knew that we'd still be talking about Pretty in Pink 20 years later, they would have paid for a much nicer wig.
Should we dance?
Wouldn't be unheard of.
It wasn't something I wanted to do. I thought it sort of ruined the integrity of the film. It's about that doesn't happen, and but I was wrong again.
We shot it, and even then we didn't have enough time to really shoot everything we wanted to. So in fact, at the end, when at one point I reached down to hold Molly's hand, that's not my hand. That's the AD's hand. And if you watch the film now, it's like this old wizened crone hand comes in. It's like, what? Wow! How did John Cryer's hand get so messed up?
That kiss at the end, I remember that very clearly. That was the last thing we did, and that was on a soundstage. And they just put a car on, and I think the batteries died, so they had to have a battery pumping because the lights were on in the car. And I just remember that kiss, and then the camera being way far back, and thinking at the time, oh, this is a lovely way to end.
The minute we cut it together, we looked at it together. Ned Tannen came in from upstairs, and we all looked at it, and John was like, we got it. And Ned said, we got it. And I didn't know. When we tested the movie again, the audience just went nuts.
Miss Ducky.
Go ahead.
The lesson for me is, from then on in, particularly in a love story, is if I'm watching each scene in a love story I'm doing, and it ain't cooking between those two the way it's supposed to be, then I'm not going to be able to force it later. It has to be there. The chemistry has to be there. The chemicals have to be there.
Yo!
You've been replaced.
Well, I think that Ducky should have ended up with her or me. The really straight guy, I don't know. It looked like Nowheresville to me. I think, you sort of pull for her to end up with Ducky because, when he falls back on her bed and he says, oh, I love this girl, I just love her. You want her to love him back because his love is true.
I had always felt a little bit gypped because now it's like, oh, now they want the story to end with her and Andrew coming together? What's up with that,
You told me you couldn't believe in somebody who didn't believe in you. I believed in you. Always believed in you. You just didn't believe in me.
Andrew's character does, he does redeem himself. He does make a mistake. Should she have ended up with Ducky? I don't know. She was not attracted to him.
I think if you're going to do a story about, love across the divide of class, it kind of has to work. Otherwise, you're saying something really wrong, And But it's funny because many people regard that as this great injustice. You know, like, oh, she should have gone with Ducky at the end, you know, and they come up to me angry, red-faced.
Yeah, but those people are wrong. Those people, I mean, it really could have been no other way. The movie is a fairy tale.
I love you. Always.
So I think it sort of ends the only way it can end, really. Maybe it was a more pure sort of ending the other way with Ducky, but I don't think it was less human, a certain way.
Just because you love someone and just because somebody's a really good friend doesn't mean necessarily that you're supposed to date them and marry them. I think if there's not that spark there to begin with, it's not something that shows up later.
Andy, he came here alone. Okay, you're right. He's not like the others.
I recall that Howie and I sort of debating whether we could get away with me looking right at the camera. And we said, what the hell? You know, we'll cut it if it doesn't work. What the hell? And that was a moment of thespianic hubris. But we got away with it because at that point you bought into who Ducky was so much that you know, you let him bend the rules a little bit. You know, it's the end, why not? And that actress actually across the way from it was Christy Swanson, who ended up being Buffy the Vampire Slayer and doing quite well for herself.
The reason that Christy Swanson is there is that we felt that Ducky had to get something. So we put in this beautiful woman who goes like that, and he goes over to her.
You know, not only was this movie 20 years ago, people, but it's just a movie, and, you know, it's not, you know, the war atrocity, you know, it's like, this is, you know, she went with the guy that she wanted to be with the whole friggin' movie. Live with it, you know, and don't worry, Ducky did fine.